Did you silence your phone? Which unfortunately, most of the time our phones, there's other people on my group that they put that number and stuff. Oh yeah, we're running out. Yeah. We're not sitting there just waiting for somebody to come to class. So.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Department. All right, I'll try that again. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Department of Security's 20th anniversary and Secretary's Award celebration. I'm Stacy Fitzmaurice, and I'm the senior official performing the duties of Deputy Administrator for the Transportation Security Administration, and I'm pleased to serve as one of your MCs today. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome leadership from across the region, our colleagues here at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport who are hosting today's event and who have worked so hard to bring everything together, our invited guests, and most importantly, our plank holders, and the awardees who we will honor and celebrate today. Whether at TSA or any other component within the Department of Homeland Security, we share a vital mission in protecting our homeland from threats. Our employees and your dedication to this mission is at the heart of what we do. As we see in our DHS motto and pledge, with honor and integrity, we will safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values. This promise unifies us across each of our unique functions within DHS to accomplish our mission with excellence every day. TSA's work here in Atlanta is a great example of employee dedication to safeguarding the nation. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport is the busiest airport in the country, and even with the enormous operational needs, they continue to be a driver for security innovation. For example, TSA and our industry partners have tested automated screening lanes and biometric fingerprint technology, all here in Atlanta, and will continue to test operational concepts here that we then deploy nationwide. And as such, I am so grateful that the site of such great partnerships and ideas is the place where we are honoring outstanding DHS employees. For the last 20 years, DHS has been growing to meet new challenges, such as protecting our nation's critical infrastructure against cybersecurity threats, implementing policies and procedures to reduce the spread of COVID-19, leading the coordination across the government for Operation Allies Welcome, which supported vulnerable Afghans as they were resettled here into the United States, and numerous other challenges that we could have never imagined at the beginning of the department. Our ability to not only face but overcome these challenges is due to your hard work and dedication, and I appreciate the opportunity to celebrate with you today. At this time, please direct your attention to the screen behind me for two special messages.
20 years ago, I asked Congress to join me in creating a new, unified
Please stand and join me in welcoming to the podium the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, the Honorable John K. Tien.
Thanks very much, Stacy. Please be seated. It's both humbling and an honor to follow three great speakers: Governor Ridge, President Bush, and our acting deputy administrator from the Transportation Security Agency, Stacy Fitzmaurice. I'm going to cover some of the similar themes that Governor Ridge, President Bush, and actually Stacy just spoke about. I do want to echo her thanks to the Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson Airport. Really appreciate hosting us today. And quite honestly, Atlanta is my current hometown, so thanks to ATL for welcoming me back through the terminals. Never busy as I come through and come in and out of TSA, and always welcome in a really secure manner all of the TSOs who are out there. Thanks to, of course, to Robert Spindon and to the entire TSA team here in Atlanta for hosting us, and to the pretty impressive management team from Washington, D.C. at the enterprise level for doing this for the first time. Actually, it's the second time. First time for me, the first time was a couple weeks ago in Tucson, Arizona, where Secretary Mayorkas, who you heard in a voiceover and I'll speak about throughout my speech, hosted the very first Secretary's Awards within our 20th anniversary, but for this year in particular, for 2023. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for anybody who's watching us online. And I believe we're live streaming. We're also going to have it on tape as well. Now, some of these things you just heard about, in particular from President Bush, 20 years to the day after the Twin Towers fell, the New York City Police Department Counterterrorism Bureau presented an American flag to Secretary Mayorkas. And they did it at Ground Zero. And it was obviously in commemoration of 9/11/2001. Upon receiving the flag, Secretary Mayorkas took the flag and said, no, he could have just taken it and he could have raised it somewhere on our headquarters on our St. Elizabeth's campus. It's about a year ago, the Secretary said, this flag belongs to the American people and belongs to our fellow employees from the Department of Homeland Security. So he gave the flag a mission, and obviously there was a caretaker for the flag, and said, I would love to see this flag moved across the United States of America and across the entire enterprise of Department of Homeland Security. I won't walk you through every single one of the places it went, but it was on a guidon and carried in the runs, in the training runs at our FLETC in Glencoe, Georgia. It waved above Coast Guard cutters who were in patrol doing counter-drug missions in the Caribbean. And it actually went back to the White House, where it was flown above the Rose Garden. Now, what's really cool, and I would recommend that if you have a chance and you can come to the St. Elizabeth's headquarters, the Department of Homeland Security headquarters, on March 1st, we other folks in DHS saw that flag. Maybe they ran with it at FLETC, but for the first time, many of us had a chance to see that flag in person because it's posted. As you come into the headquarters, the very first thing that you see is a twisted steel part of the wreckage of the Twin Towers. It's sobering. Every day I walk through those doors and I'm reminded of what President Bush, Governor Ridge asked us to do 20 years ago, and we're still doing today. And we'll talk about the plank holders here in a minute. But you see the wreckage. Then you move to the left, and in the central foyer, there's the American flag that was carried on the runs in FLETC, that was flown above the Rose Garden, and was flown aboard Coast Guard cutters, and it was represented in every office and agency, TSA and components throughout that year. It sits there, it's framed, and to the left and right, and to the top and bottom are photos of that flag with all of our fellow employees represented. And there's a rolling video screen. So it's very moving, and it's really a representation and a symbolic reminder of why we're here today. In the last 2 decades, in the 20 years that the President Bush, Secretary Mayorkas, and Governor Ridge spoke about, that separate 9/11 into where we're at today, just a few weeks after our 20th anniversary, we realized that 20 years ago, this department was born of both tragedy and necessity, both tragedy and necessity. But in that necessity, we've evolved and grown, and we've attracted the very best and retain the very best America has to offer to execute our missions. Love the fact that Stacy read out the mission. I love this mission. Stacy knows this, my team knows this. I had it printed and it's above my desk at the Department of Homeland Security. And I'm gonna repeat it again. With honor and integrity, we will safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values. What a great mission. And so many of you in this room raised your right hand and said, I want to support that mission. Now, as I speak to you now, there are Americans in the skies and on the seas traveling through our land ports, enjoying imported goods and helping secure those, protecting those from online predators, and making sure our cybersecurity is intact, protecting our infrastructure, and so much more. Americans get to do all these different things. They get to do it in a secure way. They get to do it in a safe way because you here at the Department of Homeland Security are making sure that you're executing that mission. You're doing it today, and you did it 20 years ago as well. And we're going to talk about the plank holders in a minute. You honor the victims of 9/11 through the work you perform every day. Through your work, you also honor those colleagues of ours who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service of our country. You know, many of us have lost friends, family members, and members of our community who died of cancer as a result of being there at Ground Zero at the World Trade Center. We've lost colleagues to gunshots from drug traffickers, and while they were protecting our folks on the front lines, as well as those who were exposed to COVID-19 while they were on those front lines from the global pandemic. And unfortunately, so many more. So we honor those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service of the nation. We begin today actually honoring these fallen heroes. You are our heroes as well. The tragedy of 9/11 forced us to realize that our country was not prepared for what happened on that fateful day to address the threat of foreign terrorism. And President Bush, Governor Ridge, and some of you in this room resolved that would never happen again. Many of you found and sought a way to serve, to make a meaningful contribution to the safety and security of our homeland. In that moment, 20 years ago, our department was born. Now, you started to hear Governor Ridge talk about it a little bit. He said it was pretty unorganized. There was a lot of things going on. They were looking for chairs and places and office spaces because you just can't stand up this massive restructuring just in the moment. But you know what Governor Ridge did, along with about 32,000 plank holders, well, a lot of plank holders back then, 22 different agencies, 180,000 people came together and literally created the Department of Homeland Security. So I've mentioned the plank holders a few times already. Today, so you started with 180,000, and yet today, still, we have 32,000 plank holders who are still proudly serving the country through Department of Homeland Security. We're honored to be joined by a few of them today. They know their moment is coming. We're going to sit up here. We're going to do a fireside chat with Sherry, Stefan, and Chris. But for this moment, if we have those three, so you guys have to do it. You already know that. I already told you this was coming. I would ask those three, Sherry, Chris, Stefan, and any other plank holders to please stand up. Please stand up. So hold your applause for a second. Let's get them on their feet. Let's get them on. These are plank holders? All of you are plank holders. That is awesome. I got Rusty Edwards in the back. He was already standing. These are about 15 of our 32,000 plank holders who 20 years ago either were already in service to the United States government or joined right at that moment. For them, for those in the audience, for those who will eventually watch this on tape, let's please give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Please sit down. Thank you so much. And make sure, I really want to try to get a photo with all of you. And I think we've got some 20th anniversary pins to hand off to you as well. Well deserved. Now, like me, on that fateful day, 9/11, 2001, I was not a plank holder, but I was serving and I was wearing the nation's colors. Like so many of those who stand here in blue today are wearing the nation's colors. I happen to be wearing the nation's colors through the United States Army. We don't call them plank holders, but these were folks who were in service to the country. These are folks who are in service to the country. Today, and we've had really tens of thousands more join DHS and then go on to retire. But today, we have 54,000 United States military veterans who are in service of the country today through the Department of Homeland Security. And they said, I'm done with military service, but I want to continue to serve. Stefan is actually one of them. You'll be up here later. He wears the blue of the TSO, supervisory TSO, which I think is terrific. So I'm going to ask another group of folks to stand. I'm already standing as a veteran. Who are U.S. military veterans? Please stand. Stefan, you got to lead us. Get up. All right. Now, Greg knows as a Navy veteran, normally I say just the Army guys stay standing, but I won't do that. So go ahead and take a seat. I know Stefan would join me if, as a fellow Army veteran. So we appreciate it. Now, all of us know very well that public service involves sacrifice. I spoke earlier of those who made the ultimate sacrifice, those who died from cancer, died of gunshots, and other causes. But there are other sacrifices too, including the sacrifice, and I can look around the room, and I'm sure I'll get the head nods, of missed baseball games, of missed birthday parties, of missed births, of missed anniversaries. But quite honestly, you don't even have to miss it. But the stress that we carry home in safeguarding the United States of America is pretty difficult. And when you go home, you know, our families are there who bear some of that burden with us. Because as Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says, when we serve, we all serve. When we serve, we all serve. Nobody serves alone. And when one serves, the family serves, as he says. Our families and loved ones deserve our deepest appreciation and respect. And so I know we've got some family members in here too. I just want to say from Secretary Mayorkas, from us, thank you very much. Do we have any family members, and this is a little bit hard because there are some folks, well, what if I'm a dual person? Then you should stand. Do we have any family members in the audience now? Okay, I know we have a couple of teams, a couple have come in, we've got a couple of standing in the back. Thanks very much. Thank you. And this is really for our online and live stream. In 2002, President Bush, who we just heard from, obviously delivered remarks on national television and urged Congress to create our department. He said, and I'm not going to repeat a quote that he just said, this is a different quote. He said, employees of this new agency will come to work every morning knowing their most important job is to protect their fellow citizens. That is indeed what you have built through the past 20 years. Congress may not have predicted today's diverse and complex threat environment when our department was first created. But our mission has never been more vital. Our components have never been more collaborative together and working together. And our nation has never been more prepared. As you heard Secretary Mayorkas said, our department is more fit for purpose than ever before. The reason why is because of all of you. The 60 or so odd in this room and the 260,000 who are out there across the United States of America and forward deployed. You fulfill our mission every day, and because of you, we are ready for the ever-evolving mission and really the ever-evolving threats that we see coming to America. Now, 20 years ago, and you heard the president speak about this, our focus was on the foreign terrorists, Remember that they well, Al-Qaeda and the flying the jets in the Twin Towers, the Pentagon into Pennsylvania. And they who sought to enter our country and give us grave harm. Back then, we did not have uppermost in our minds the kind of threats that we're seeing today. We still have the foreign terrorist threat, but today we also have cybersecurity. We also have threats of lone offenders who are inspired by those overseas who seek to do us harm, who are spreading different and dangerous and evil ideologies. Nor were we ready for the kind of cybersecurity threat that we are seeing in our small towns, in our big cities, in our infrastructure, in our schools, in our hospitals, in our other parts of the critical infrastructure. These are being perpetrated by cyber criminals who oftentimes are holding our institutions hostage and demanding a ransom back. That didn't exist 20 years ago. But because of this, all of you, because of the evolutionary nature of the Department of Homeland Security, again, we are more fit for purpose than ever before. What about these lone offenders? What about the evil that sits out there in the United States of America? These school shootings and things of that nature. Well, one of the things that we've stood up really over the last year is something called the Center for Prevention Programs and Partnership. And this is to actually help support our communities in their efforts to first detect and then prevent, get to the left of the event of the lone offender from ever materializing. As I said, in terms of the ransomware, how are we dealing with that? Now today, we have newly named, about a year, 2 years ago plus, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, whose mission is to effectively build our nation's cyber defenses, not just for the United States government, but really for our civilian critical infrastructure. In short, we've adapted and we've built capabilities over time to be prepared for these ever-evolving threats. Now, as you heard Governor Ridge say, we were created 20 years ago in the largest restructuring of the federal government since World War II. We are critical to safeguarding the people's lives. Stacey and I just both mentioned that mission, to engaging with the American people every day and servicing them in so many different ways. And those who are in blue know that. You see millions of Americans come through and use service and support them every day as they move on and are able to carry out their lives. I mentioned before, and I've heard Governor Ridge actually make this comment in person, where he says, we were there in these hallways. We were literally facing, and I'm looking at Chris, Sherry, and Stefan. We were literally staring at desks and chairs at buildings. I was like, because most buildings in Washington, D.C., they were being used for something. Then all of a sudden, they had to give them up, and we had to create headquarters and saying, how are we going to put all of this together? But out of that came the Department of Homeland Security. And it sort of feels like that in a blink of the eye, DHS was formed, became the third largest federal department, and over time has evolved into 260,000 strong, carrying out missions in support of the American people against these ever-evolving threats. What are some of the things that we do? And again, I look across this room, I just met with a bunch of great SES leaders, and they are the leaders of the kinds of things I'm going to talk about. We save victims of crime and hold perpetrators accountable. We promote lawful trade and travel. We advance the United States' interest on frontiers from the Arctic to the Indo-Pacific. We secure our borders and seize contraband designed to inflict harm and provide the best protection services in the world, deliver heroic relief when disaster strikes and people are at their most vulnerable. We advance the security of cyberspace, affirm our country's stature as a beacon of hope and opportunity that shines so brightly to the rest of the world. All of this in the interest of keeping Americans safe and secure. We developed these extraordinary capabilities in such a short period of time. But again, we were able to do this because of all of you. You, all of you online in this room have built the Department of Homeland Security over the last 20 years, and your achievements deserve to be applauded. Now, as we look forward, right, what do the next 20 years hold? What do the next 20 years hold? I'm a clear-eyed realist. I'm a United States Army veteran like Stefan and at least a few others, Army veterans. So we got some Navy, Marine guys back here as well, and Air Force, Coast Guard, and obviously Space Force now as well. I'm a clear-eyed realist, and I will tell you that the threats that we face today, they're bad. They are going to just continue. They are just going to continue. We'll be ready for it because foreign adversaries, they want to wage new different wars, but we'll continue to evolve, we'll continue to learn, but we're going to really have to depend on all of you to be able to do that. One example, quite honestly, is something that you're seeing in the newspapers, online, in the news, is really artificial intelligence. It's going to change the way that we think about how these perpetrators, how these people who want to do evil will leverage that tool. It's really good for many different things, but they're going to use it against us because we are living and operating, working and safeguarding in such an interconnected world. From the beginning, the greatest strength of the Department of Homeland Security has been all of you. You came, 32,000 of you strong, came before all of us and in service, and you did so in service of the flag that I mentioned at the very beginning, that sits in the hallway of St. Elizabeth's that I again invite you to come. All of you have done that in the service of our country. All of you raised your right hand at some point in your lives and swore to defend and support the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And for that, Secretary Mayorkas thanks you, and I thank you. Thanks very much.
Today I'll never forget. Saw on the news the first plane hit the tower.
And I could see the Twin Towers, smoke coming out of one of the towers. I realized something was really wrong.
When the second plane hit, we were in the office in the meeting, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, doors open up, Secret Service came in, Vice President came in, and we went to work.
Getting out of my building.
Prosperity by safeguarding U.S. borders.
We serve as the research and development arm of DHS.
To our partners to identify, mitigate, and respond to threats.
We lead efforts and coordinate with domestic and international partners to safeguard the U.S. against commercial, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear IED enhancements and health security threats.
We protect the nation's transportation systems to ensure freedom of movement for people in towns.
We enforce the nation's laws at sea, protecting the marine environment and the nation's vast coastline and ports.
We provide enterprise situational awareness, a common operating picture, information sharing, and decision support on threats, incidents, and events impacting the homeland.
The Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers, through strategic partnerships, prepares the federal law enforcement community to safeguard America's people, property, and institutions.
We preserve national security and public safety through criminal investigations and enforcing immigration laws.
We help people before, during, and after disasters.
We ensure the safety and security of the nation's highest elected leaders and protect the financial and critical infrastructure of the United States. We uphold America's promise as a nation of welcome and possibility with fairness, integrity, and respect for all we serve.
And I remember telling my daughter, if I don't get up to the plane on the anniversary of 9/11 and go where I need to go to work for the department, then we're letting them win.
Miss Collins, things is not ready. But it's okay, because someone has to make the sacrifice. And I'm glad that I had the circumstances to be able to make that sacrifice.
Moving from place to place because of different assignments and roles and responsibilities has taken its toll on my family. But all in all, they know it's for the greater good, and they've been there to support me and has continued to support me.
Every day, DHS does something to make you and America safer.
We've been moving really quickly. In the last 20 years, we've accomplished a lot. We've merged so many agencies together under one mission and one banner.
Our mission will be to conduct scientific research in the Arctic to understand how it's changing and how it affects the rest of the world, really.
I believe wholeheartedly in the role that DHS plays in national security.
It's an amazing organization. You won't find too many people that don't feel the passion to actually be part of Homeland Security.
We are a team. There's no I in the work at DHS. It's everybody showing up to do their function so that everybody's function can be the best it can be.
But if you ask me, would I do it again? In a heartbeat.
With honor and integrity.
We will safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values.
We are DHS.
Many employees across DHS have been with the department since it was established in 2003. Our department was built on a foundation of employees that we refer to as plank holders. Joining Deputy Secretary Tien are 3 DHS plank holders who will share reflections on the last 20 years and the future of our department. Please welcome back to the front Deputy Secretary Tien. Please also join me in welcoming from the Transportation Security Administration, Stefan Eccles, Chris Morris, and Sherry Stevens-Mack.
So I've gotten a chance to know our 3 great plank holders. I know we have some other plank holders as well. You know, when I was thinking about today and really over the next month and a half as we're going through this and I was reviewing what we call the flow of show, I was like, wow, this is going to be great. You know, we did the Secretary Awards last year, and then I found out that we're going to get a chance to not only obviously talk about the 20th anniversary, but I was going to get a chance to reprise what Secretary Mayorkas did right after President Biden spoke in person at St. Elizabeth's, where the Secretary had a chance to do a plank holder fireside chat, and that I would get to meet 3 plank holders of the 32,000 in person. What I didn't quite realize was how much of a hype man and hype women that you were going to get to this, right? You've got President Bush, Governor Ridge, these great videos, all for you. But I think it's so, in particular, representative and symbolic and well-earned for the 3 of you as you represent the 32,000. And I think it would be great for those online and those here in the room and family members and other colleagues who are watching, just to get to understand, what does it mean to be a plank holder and how did you come to this? So maybe we could do a little bit of a rapid fire. We'll go 1, 2, 3. We'll start with Sherry. And I just ask you, Sherry, to start with you is, what inspired you to public service?
I am Is the mic on?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm a military brat, the daughter of a distinguished Army enlisted, senior enlisted person, and my mother worked for DOD. And so they instilled in my brother and I the desire to give back to others and to be of service to others. And so that's what led me to pursue a career with the federal government.
That's great. That's great. Stefan, what inspired you to public service?
Well, I started off wanting to be just an electrical engineer, but when I went to the military, once I came out, I was a 75 Charlie, which is personnel management, helping the soldiers. I became in law enforcement and things of that nature. So I'm public service for the last 30-something years.
That's amazing. Love it. Chris, what inspired you to public service?
Family, in one word. My grandfather started off working for the federal government in D.C. With Department of Justice as an attorney. And then the rest of the family slowly moved out to D.C. and followed suit. And I'd say I probably have 10 or so members that have worked for the federal government, and then additional family that's worked for state and local. So it just always was the thing that I thought I was meant to do. And so much so that I majored in political science. And they came recruiting on my college campus, and here I am 32 years later. So
You can say George Mason.
yes.
In Fairfax, Virginia. That's terrific. What a great common theme that's run through all of them as they talked about others who had served before them, whether it was family, whether it was folks who were in the United States Army with Stefan and colleagues and everything else. But what's so cool is that you are exemplars to the rest of us, to your family, your friends and communities of service, that not only did you get inspired to go to service, not only did you stay with the service, but for the last 20 years, you've continued the service here at the Department of Homeland Security. So let's zero in a little bit more. And Sherry, just ask you, what was it like in the early days of the Department of Homeland Security? You heard Governor Ridge talk about it. I sort of quoted him a little bit about chairs and desks in the hallways, things of that nature. What was it like to be there at the beginning?
Very much what was said in the video. I transitioned from the Federal Aviation Administration into the Department of Homeland Security. I was a civil aviation security specialist. And so after September 11th, we were deployed throughout the country to all of the airports, some that we had been to before, some that we had not been. And so there were sometimes the desk was a cardboard box. You scrambled to find a variety of things. And it was a challenge. It was invigorating, very exciting, just to work with a variety of people to make the agency come together.
Overcome and adapt, makes sense. Stefan, Sherry spoke a little bit, some of those challenges. Over the last 20 years, what are some of the challenges you've seen that DHS has had?
Well, working at the airport, you had, as you guys travel, our passengers. Y'all was frustrated coming through. Why I have to take this off? Why I got to do this? Y'all violating me. So as a supervisor, I have to deal with all the complaints and things of that nature.
Sure.
But look at us now. Everybody want TSA pre-check. When they come in now, TSA, pre-check. So the challenges has been, we started off as the bad guy. Now everybody want to be TSA pre-check. And we're flying.
That's right.
Right now is the busiest it's been before COVID. So this is the challenges, but we stood the test the time. So
it's amazing. I mean, when you think about it, and if you remember the woman who was from Privacy, and she said for that moment, she goes, she was going to go up on the anniversary of 9/11, and she said to her daughter, if I don't do it, right, who am I? I need to be there. I'm a member of, and I know her a bit from the Department of Homeland Security. I have confidence. And why does she have confidence? And why do the American people have confidence every day to go to ATL, to DFW, to PIT? Why? Because of TSA and the fact that you could overcome the challenge you spoke about, Stefan. Thanks. So, Chris, when we think about it, and I started to speak a little bit, I think a couple folks were a little concerned. I was just like, wait, you just talked about the last 20 years. I was going to talk about the future for 20 years. I mean, is this going to be a twice as long speech? It wasn't. I wrapped it up. But I'm going to give you that shot and say, what do you think? What does DHS look like in the future?
Well, it's hard to even imagine. I mean, who could have imagined 20 years ago we had no cell phones? And if we took a work trip, we got out our handy atlas and highlighted where we wanted to go. And my son doesn't even know what that is.
He knows what a GPS is.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how much the technology has evolved. It's hard for people that started in their 20s and are now in their 50s or 60s to even keep up with it. It's definitely my Achilles heel, but I'm working on it. But as far as where the agency is going to go, I can't even imagine. I mean, I know that just last year or so, cybersecurity has been what I initially thought was just a buzzword, but it's now really come to the forefront of almost everything that we're working on right now. It's definitely a threat. The terrorism threat, as you spoke about, has evolved. We really have to hire the best. We have to hire some of these young kids out of college that have studied in these fields and can take us through the next 10 or 20 or 30 years. And for our existing workforce, we have to continue to train them up with the evolving threat. And so I think the agency is extremely important. We have a clear mission. We're here to stay. I can't imagine our country without DHS. And I'm really proud of our clear mission. So looking forward to the next however many years.
Yeah, that's great. No, totally agree with that. One of the things you mentioned, cybersecurity. I spoke about artificial intelligence. Just think about UASs, about drones. And even certainly not 20 years ago, but even 10 years ago, people don't really think about drones. And yet, our authorities allow us to do something called counter UAS. We're going to need to continue to do that. And the evil people out there, the enemy, those who wish to do the United States of America harm, will figure out a way to leverage those things even more. And you spoke about cybersecurity. I'm looking around this room. I know a good majority of you live in the Southeast, certainly in Atlanta, and you remember the Colonial Pipeline, right? I won't ask for a show of hands, but I will tell you, I sat in an hour and a half gas line. And that's a small inconvenience, but really what that talked about was that these cyber criminals could start to bring a portion of our country to our knees. And so you're right, it's the threats are going to be ever evolving. Any specific moments, Sherry, as you think back across the last 20 years that were particularly memorable for you in your personal experiences at DHS?
There are several, but I would say the times, again, working with my colleagues to start up the agency. I mean, there were people that came from a diverse backgrounds. We had to come together and make things work. And there was such a sense of selflessness and wanting to give back to make DHS work. And so all of the successes that we've made are really what's most memorable.
Yeah, 22 different agencies, 180,000 people. You were in a bunch of different places and came together and said, if this is going to work, we're going to have to work together. And I've heard that spirit before. It's so good to see it in you, Sherry. Stefan, what about any particular proud moments where you go, man, it was awesome to be here at DHS? 1 or 2, 3 or 10?
Well, as you know, the first airport to be stood up was BWI. My colleagues there, she was up there with me.
Who? Right here? Okay.
Susan.
What's your name? Susan. All right.
And so we were trained by ex-Secret Service, former military. And so we was trained up there with them. I was like, wow, it was very exciting. And once we was trained with them, we trained 4,000 or 5,000 other agency officers. And while we was training them, we had to make believe machines too. So you're like, wow.
Right.
Remember that? You remember that? Yeah. So it turned out well though. Once we got everybody trained and once we wrote out BWI with the GFK. Mm-hmm. So my proudest moments when we first started out. And we had different people from different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. We had ex-police officers, ex-military personnel, a lot of people who was in a technology realm at the time. They lost their jobs and things of that nature, so they applied TSA as supervisors. So it was one of the proudest moments coming together in a diverse group, and we made it happen.
You did overcome and adapt, that's for sure. And thank God that you did. And I think on the technology piece in particular, again, I think I'm preaching to the choir to some extent, but for anybody who transits our nation's airports, and particularly ATL, where it's pretty cool, you guys get to do a lot of cutting edge things like mobile driver's license and things of that nature, and the bag scanners. It's so impressive. But that's because, and I just heard this from your chief innovation officer, that's because you all are always thinking, you're always learning, and you're always considering and creating opportunities to make it better for the American people. Not just better, but not just safer, but better. So, Chris, go back to you and ask you, you said, what does the next 20 years look like? And I say to you, and you talked about these kids, these are our kids, quite honestly, who are coming through. What advice would you give to the next generation of DHSers?
Well, I was a training manager for 15 years, and so education is my passion. I really feel that we need to hire the best and the brightest. If you want to pursue higher education, that's great. If you want to pursue different experiences, that's great too. I recommend that you take advantage of all the agency programs, the different formal programs where you can go off to training, you can do detail assignments in different places, learn all that you can about the organization, and shadow as many leaders as you can, because you'll get different perspectives and ideas as to what direction you want your career to go. And so I do believe it's important that we bring in some young new minds and take the agency through the next couple of decades. So.
No, I appreciate that. You talked about cyber in particular, and again, when we talk about Colonial Pipeline, it's really because what do you do with this thing where someone's going to come in and take over our industrial control systems, the ICS, and the American people, the industry, the pipeline owners turned and said, "What do you think, federal government?" And who did they turn to in the federal government? They turned to TSM, pointing to your acting deputy administrator, Stacey Fitzmaurice, and we enacted, not me, it happened to be my first day on the job almost 2 years ago, our security directives 1 and 2 to really raise the level of cybersecurity planning guidance that they had to execute. But we're going to need the next generation to be smart on that, but also be willing to be as thoughtful and evolutionary and as thinking creative as all of you. I'm going to just finish with one last question, just one, which is, why are you proud to be in DHS?
For me, it's being here from the start. It's a legacy that I can share with my children, 2 of which were not born when the agency started. And so it will be around forever. And just to have been on the ground of a starting department is a very proud thing.
That's pretty cool. Stefan, DHS proud?
DHS strong.
Yeah, like it.
Yes, but being at the agency is very humbling too. So I'm just proud to be a part of the agency that protects the not just the flying public, but our surrounding borders. We doing a good job, and we continue to do a good job, and I think we'll be safe for the rest of our years and our families. So I'm proud to be a part of that, and I can sit back. Hopefully, I can sit back in my rocking chair and say, "Hey, we helped start that."
You can't sit back yet. You need another 20 years. Right? Someone's got to train these youngsters. All right. Chris, what about you?
I'm very proud to be a part of an agency that stood up from the get-go. As the video talked about, they haven't done anything this big since World War II, and that really is humbling. And we tend to get kind of stovepiped into our own agency and our mission, but this reminded me of all the different agencies that make up DHS, and a lot of them do really put themselves in harm's way each and every day. And so from someone who sits at the desk most of the time, it really is humbling. And I'm just proud of our agency. I'm proud of the Department of Homeland Security. I'm proud of our mission, and just appreciate the opportunity today. Thank you.
No, thanks very much. Well, I'll tell you, you've got 3 great exemplars of service. Again, Not only they were inspired to service, but they stayed with service. They stay with Department of Homeland Security, and they will continue to stay apparently for another 20 years. So thank you for that. Well done. Well done. Great job. Well done. You guys want to moderate? It's okay.
Thank you, Deputy and Stefan, Chris, and Sherry. That was great.
Oh, I see.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lori Bolden. I'm the Chief Learning Officer for the Department of Homeland Security, and I will serve as your MC for the awards portion of today's ceremony. Like last year, the DHS Secretary's Awards are being presented at regional ceremonies across the country, acknowledging the exceptional work being done across the department by DHS employees. In doing so, we will tell the stories of their accomplishments, their contributions, and in some cases, their heroic acts that were all in the name of public service. We are so honored to serve alongside these employees and to have this special time to recognize their work. Today, we recognize individuals and teams who have made outstanding contributions to the Department of Homeland Security and to our nation. During this ceremony, I will share a brief description of the award categories. Deputy Secretary Tien will read the recipients' honors before he asks the awardees to join him up front to be presented with their award. After receiving the award, awardees will have a short conversation with the deputy to learn more about their meritorious work. So let's begin. Our first award today is the Secretary's Award for Innovation. This award recognizes individuals or teams who employ a strategic and enterprise-wide approach to strengthening the Department of Homeland Security's mission and its operations. The nominees should exhibit an ongoing record of high standards in achievement and innovation. The work of the nominees may have resulted in superior performance and/or significant operational improvements. The nominees' achievements and contributions should include maximizing the effectiveness of people, processes, and technologies, providing wise stewardship of resources, and enhancing the capabilities of DHS employees.
Great. Thanks very much, Lori, our great Chief Learning Officer for the entire DHS. So this is the Innovation Award, one of a few. The Critical Incident Stress Management Counseling Service Portal team developed and implemented the Power BI-based CISM Counseling Service Portal. This portal has transformed how FLETC, you remember FLETC, I talked about the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, critical incident stress management counselors, how they track encounters, how they monitor collected data, how they develop methods and processes to address student wellness and resilience needs. So please join me in welcoming to the front the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Folks, hold your applause for a second because I want to make sure we've got folks. So when I call your name, if you're here, come on up. I think there's 4 or 5 who aren't here. Sean McHugh, are you here, Sean? There you are, Sean. Great. And from Customs and Border Protection, so FLETC, Customs Border Protection, Vincent Fields. Oh, FLETC as well. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. And unable to join us today, or unless you're here, Brandon Rydens, Brandon Spraggins, Crystal Vasquez-Barrett, and David Slusher. So for those 4, let's give a quick round of applause because they might be watching. So let's go up and hand off the awards, and I'm going to ask a little conversation piece. Okay, here we go. So Sean, we'll do Sean first. Sean, there you go. Sean, there you go. Well done. Congratulations. Vincent, also from FLETC, right? Well done. So let me just ask you, okay, you guys are you're both going to get a chance to talk.
Yes, indeed.
All right. We'll go Vincent first. So Vincent, where did the idea come from for the CISM team?
Approximately 2 years ago, the deputy director approached our mission readiness and support director and asked him to come up with something innovative outside of the regular routine resiliency messaging that we do every year. And so we were tasked to put together a project that basically did that. We converted what was once paper and routine into an electronic interactive format that people can access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and basically brought paper to life. And that's where Sean and his team did the electronic conversion.
So Sean, what's some of your secret sauce to make this conversion?
Really, it was taking some of the resources that FLETC already had. Everybody operates under budget constraints, so we needed to identify the resources that we had in order to leverage those technologies and also get a couple things to integrate together so that we had not only the method for students to reach us, but the staff to also document all that and then to turn around, collect information related to those encounters and present that information to management so they can make data-based decisions related to the services that are provided.
Hugely innovative. I actually got a chance to talk about this, obviously, when we were going through the awards review and things of that nature, how much time it saved, the efficiency, and the fact that it really made us more effective in executing the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center mission.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's terrific. There's Chris over here. I'm not going to ask you to come back up and talk again, but Chris talked about getting the next generation up here. We got 2 millennials who have clearly done a great job, and it just shows. Nothing against you guys or me, but you don't have to be 25 in order to be super IT and innovative. So thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And just since you're wondering, I look around, especially we've got folks who are in the Department of Homeland Security. You've done award ceremonies before, and you're like, well, where's the grip and grin? When are you going to do the photos? We are so proud of the Department of Homeland Security. We're so excited about the 20th anniversary that we're going to do a photo session really with anybody who wants to afterwards. We'll make sure that we do the plank holders and the awardees, and we'll do it over in front of the step and repeat. So that's why we're not getting the grip and grin photo, especially for those who are in the military or so used to it. I had a hard time with it last year too. I go, no, I stand here, I shake their hand, and we point to the camera. Okay, for the next innovation award, the litigation modernization team is a government model for transformational change. It's composed of staff from several programs across CBP and others. And the team leveraged subject matter skill sets to achieve innovative efficiencies to better handle litigation and information disclosure. As a true change agent, this litigation modernization team's work has resulted in millions of dollars of cost savings and facilitated the use of automation to save hundreds of hours of manual work. Please join me in welcoming to the front somebody from, it's Tate Keenan, stay here? Tate, from Customs and Border Protection. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right, awesome. Now, Tate, let's move over just a little bit here. Here you go. Usually when there's just one person who's here from the team, there are others who weren't able to be here. They're usually, oh, there's so many others. So I'm gonna ask you don't have to name everybody. How did you leverage here you go from Lori. How did you leverage the team approach in particular for this? Why did the team really work well together to produce this great effect?
I mean, you just had so many different perspectives from across the country when it comes to litigation. There's all sorts of different kinds of litigation, right? We have the huge litigations, nationwide litigations, smaller litigations, so the different perspectives of attorneys. But really for this specific team too, OIT was critical too, because a lot of it was about document preservation. It was sort of a reaction to court decisions and lawsuits involving CBP where we came to realize that we aren't equipped to deal with this. We need to really step up so that we can respond to these courts. And part of that was working with OIT and determining, okay, how can we preserve these documents so when the courts come to us and say, all right, you need to produce this tomorrow, we're prepared to do that. So all those different perspectives really helped significantly. So we had calls with OIT and all sorts of different components, and then we had calls within our team because counsel's office also had to set up the protocol within our, we weren't up to date either, so.
Well, gosh, not only did you have to be smart about the technology piece of it, but you also had to really think about the department's equities here and really to protect and quite honestly make sure that you were doing the right things ethically, philosophically, in support of the people who we have their paperwork in hand. So great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the Secretary's Award for Team Excellence. This award recognizes any unit within the department, such as a component, directorate, office, division, or section, with outstanding team achievements in operational areas such as law enforcement, aviation, cybersecurity, border operations, hiring, acquisition, and information technology. The work will have resulted in measurable improvements in training and development and will have demonstrated an investment in the workforce to make it more capable. The work of the unit will include superior performance and significant operational improvements and/or notable innovation in support of DHS missions.
Great, thanks, Lori. The Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Office State and Local Engagement Team, bit of a mouthful, but that's the CWMD team, right, who is engaging with our state and local folks. It's improved CWMD, that's one of our enterprise offices, engagement with state and local stakeholders through a number of things: robust outreach and education, senior level site visits across the country, constant staff contact on a personal level, and superb delivery of products and services. These efforts have improved state and local agencies' understanding of the CWMD lines of support and facilitating their mission accomplishment. Now, I'm going to call out a name. If you're here, come on up. If not, then I'll talk a little bit about them. Donald Clarkson? Nope, so wasn't going to be able to make it. So there were others in this office, CWMD, it's led by our Acting Assistant Secretary, Gary Rassicott. But for today, let's please give a warm round of applause for Donald Clarkson. All right, the next team award goes to the Ethos Training Development Team. This team was integral to designing and producing the Professional Public Service Ethos program. This program delivers on the Secretary's intent. It truly is the Secretary's intent, I can tell you, because he gave me the guidance directly, one-on-one. It's a good conversation. And then, we had a couple other conversations that were a little less good for me as we moved through. And the Secretary said, more, better, faster, and he was absolutely right. This program delivers on the Secretary's intent to ensure the foundation of our workforce development and focus on what it means to be a public servant. You heard from Chris, Stefan, and Sherry what it means to be a public servant. And we're now trying to pass this on to the next generation that Chris and I spoke about. And to hold ourselves to the highest standards of honor, integrity, and ethical conduct to earn and protect the public trust. Please join me in welcoming to the front from the Transportation Security Administration, Brian Moses. Brian. From the Federal Law Enforcement Training Centers, Michael Creel. And from the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, Antonio Skurlock. Yes? No? Okay. So we don't have Antonio. So let's give him a round of applause to Antonio. So looks like we just have Michael and we have Brian. Okay, great. Brian? And Michael. Great. So quick questions to, on the microphone. We'll go with you first, Michael. So as you, again, a little bit of an origin story behind it. How did this all come to be?
Well, you led into it, sir.
Yeah.
It kind of came from the secretary. It was the secretary's initiative, and I was honored to be able to represent FLETC as one of the components, obviously, from across the department that was able to put the content together and roll it out just almost about a year ago.
And what about some of the secret sauce, some of the things I've talked about before? This is a hard thing. It's capturing lightning in a bottle, as I recall.
Absolutely, sir. Secret sauce was being very agile and versatile. So the project actually took a couple of changes early on, and it originated from 3 days and a lot of resistance from some of the components, basically due to resources and timings to train new hire agents and personnel. So finally stumbled upon the 1 day, and it was a very intense 1 day, especially for large agencies such as TSA that have the ability of training or providing this training to over 10,000 annually. So.
That's super. Now Lori's going to be mad at me because I'm going to ask her to grab the microphone from you.
You're right.
Come on, grab it. You already have a microphone. Yes, so Lori, as you recall in her introduction, is the Chief Learning Officer. And the conversation, I would have a good conversation with the Secretary. We would talk about it. And by the way, I was hugely supportive of this. I thought this was such a great idea. It's like, but it's really hard. Right. It was really, really hard, and said, all right, we're going to have to capture lightning in a bottle. And we went through a couple of iterations. But, I know you're really proud of it. I know Brian and Michael are really proud of it. I am. The secretary loves it. The secretary, he'll be mad at me, switch off the camera, but you know, we all had a tear on a couple of the videos that are in there. It's incredibly moving. So what are you particularly proud about, Lori, on it?
Actually, I'm most proud that we get the most feedback about the ethos part of orientation compared to any other part of orientation. And it's uniformly amazing, wonderful feedback that people have felt so motivated, so glad to join DHS. So many people say, I've even worked in another federal agency and we never got that sort of in touch with our mission. We never got that connection at any time that they worked there. And it's just wonderful to see the results of it because it was difficult. We went through many iterations. You all are generous to say there were 2 or 3 iterations. We went through many iterations. And so I'm just glad that it came to that and people really seem to enjoy the class.
Yeah, well done. Well done. All right, great job. Okay, the next award is given to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and it was given a congressional mandate to deliver the use of force instructor training program to federal law enforcement organizations. And from August 2021 through September 2022, and it continues, this is just the year that we're looking at, the FLETC Enforcement Operations Division Use of Force Branch successfully delivered 54 iterations to 942 students. Additionally, his team has completed a use of force curriculum review conference and completed infrastructure upgrades to the FLETC use of force complex. So we've got a bunch of folks who aren't here. I'm going to call out the names. If you are, come on up, and then I'll call out the 3 folks who I'm told are supposed to be here today. So hold your applause, and we'll do one big round of applause at the end. It's a long list, usefully. Albert Medlock, Andrew French, Charles Moore, Christopher Lair, Dion DeRoya, Gerardo DeRosso, Glenn DeMar, Gregory Edmondson, Jeffrey Dolson, Joey Comstock, Kenneth Stewart, Martin Rudine, Mary Mara, Matthew Schwartz, Michael Nevin, a few more, Penny Jones, Samuel Lockridge, Scott Reed, Todd Hoover, and Ulysses Hutchins. Now those folks weren't here, so let's give them a round of applause for the camera. Now for the folks who are here, we're going to get a chance to talk a little bit about this great program. Kevin Rourke. Okay. Let's see, sitting together, I can see that. Liberty Moore, so Kevin. All right, Liberty Moore. And Brian Feeney. All right, everybody's here. Kevin, just step a little bit to the left. Thanks. Great. Kevin, Liberty, and Brian. So Kevin. And Brian. So I'm going to ask a question for each of you. How have the, so this is use of force. This is new evolution. You know, obviously our law enforcement officers have had to figure out how to do this before, but this was a new level, a new standard. How have the students been absorbing it?
The students have been very receptive to the use of force instructor training program presented by FLETC. The critical decision-making prior to, during, and after use of force encounters have been very receptive. The constitutional standard has been accepted very well, and also the use of force and human performance and de-escalation techniques and theories that we've given out there have been very accepted very well.
That's great, great. Liberty, you got a question for you, and you're going to have to represent 20 people here, right? Because effectively, I'm going to ask you a question similar I've asked some of the others already, which is, how did you bring the team dynamic into this? How did that make it better?
So with the team dynamic, I actually come from the legal division out at FLETC, so I'm more focused on the law and
Sure.
what we deal with use of force, as well as the main 3 cases, as well as some others. But the team dynamic, including that attorney with other instructors from all facets of law enforcement, has been really great because it's been a way to connect to our partners, both federal as well as state and locals, to let them understand that they're not alone. We understand what they're going through. And so it's been an easy way to get through everything that Kevin spoke of as well.
Super. All right, now Brian, I'm going to ask a question. You may be one of these 20 folks, so if not, I'll ask you a different question. Talked about infrastructure in here. as well. So one part, was the whole substantive elements of taking a new executive order, our laws, where we're at, and applying that and actually coming up with a curriculum. But there was also an infrastructure piece to that. Can you talk to that? And if not, I'll ask you a different question.
Sure, absolutely. In fact, watching the formation of DHS kind of brought me back to when we had the discussions about just forming the branch to begin with. We had the same, it was a brand new branch. Part of that was where are we going to put people? Where are they going to sit? Desks, pens, pencils, everything else they need. But one of the things we looked at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center was we need to be able to provide this critical use of force decision-making, particularly reality-based training. So we started to look, when we had inclement weather, it kind of shut a lot of our training down. And for this critical decisions of use of force, we needed to try to structure a place that was under roof, that when we had some inclement weather, we could still continue the training for the thousands of students that come through the FLETC. So in addition to the team's training on the road, up to 75% of the year, we were able to effectively work with our facilities management and other partners at the FLETC to develop, secure the funding, and construct an additional undercover. It's basically the size of a football field to develop and use it for critical decision making and scenario-based use of force training. So we're very excited about it. It was a big year.
Really smart. I mean, and I think you guys know this. I obviously came down last year and got to see it in person, literally in the 360. I think this kind of training is so important. You have to have the substance. You have to have the legal basis, and at the end of the day, in order to reach these 940 some odd students, you got to have them somewhere, and it's got to be absorbable, and it sounds like it has. So congratulations, you guys. Okay, we've got another team award coming up here, largely the Coast Guard. The H-65 Conversion Sustainment Program, the H-65, as you'll find out, is a helicopter, is making significant contributions to the Coast Guard's fleet by converting and delivering the more capable MH-65 Echo helicopter and associated logistics that are providing air crews the platform, tools, and training to successfully execute their missions and return safely. Mission readiness is the measure that matters the most, and in just the past year, the MH-65 Echo has saved more than 200 people in peril. 200 people. These are largely fellow American citizens, with 127 of those directly hoisted or carried into the MH-65 Echo. So you imagine the helicopter, you saw some of it over water and then coming up into the basket. And another 81 of those folks assisted in their rescues by other assets. That's one person rescued almost every other day. Now, I'm told that the Coast Guard, they're pretty busy. We're all busy, but if you've noticed, there's not a big body of water around Atlanta, so they would have to come forward from a couple of different places, the coast or the Caribbean. I'm told they're not here. I got some coasties in the audience. Are you representing MH-65? Awesome. Come on up. Okay. All right. Who are folks here? Kenneth. Okay. So we have Kenneth Ersick, right? And then we also have Karen Forsythe. Now I have a bunch of other folks. Is it okay if I read their names as well? And then we'll do a round of applause for them. Lieutenant Commander Charles Whitesell, Commander Christopher Presnell, Lieutenant Commander Morgan. You know some of these people, right? Okay. Chief, I was thinking, am I reading the wrong Coast Guard list? I want to make sure we're good. Chief Warrant Officer Michael Farr, Lieutenant Commander Christopher Brewer, Lieutenant Commander Eric Barnett, Chief Warrant Officer Jonathan Shockley, Chief Petty Officer Jonathan Frumpkin, Petty Officer First Class Cassandra Hunter, this is you, Lieutenant Kenneth Ersick, Chief Petty Officer Kenneth Bartholomew, Chief Warrant Officer Matthew Bone, Chief Warrant Officer Roderick Ansley, Petty Officer First Class Shannon Costles, Chief Warrant Officer Jason Farr, Chief Warrant Officer Michael Morrow, and Lieutenant Commander Daniel Miller. And Karen, I've got you up here as well. So let me give you that. And we're going to do another round of applause. I'm going to ask the Coasties some questions. So I've had a chance to be out on a bunch of cutters. Certainly, I've been up in some 65 and some of your other rotary wing as well as fixed wing aircraft. You saw on some of these videos over water. If you've seen some of these movies out here, it's pretty real. I've not obviously done it myself, somewhere in my room, I've got a military aide. There he is. He was a Coast Guard rescue swimmer, Lieutenant Commander Bobby LaPolt, back before he got the way more exciting job to support me as my military aide and advisor. These are really difficult conditions that you're doing this. I mean, and we're not just talking over water and if aircraft, there's no hard landing in water for rotary wing. But more so, you've got 40 knot gust of winds. You have people who, quite honestly, aren't excited about being in the water, even though, they obviously were. They went out into the water in dangerous conditions. And now you've created a sustainment program for the MH-65 Echo. What were some of the real challenges to doing this so that you could bring this asset to make sure it was ready and fit for purpose? We'll start with you, Karen.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just a cog in the wheel.
Sure.
We have an incredible group of people that are geographically dispersed, headquarters up in Washington, D.C., Elizabeth City, where our product line and our technical training center, and then our training center down in Mobile, Alabama. The challenges, I know we are kind of post-COVID, but delivering an asset to the fleet during the COVID conditions, our crews had to maintain 6 feet of social distance. Very hard to train in that environment, but we got it done. It starts with the training, and everyone had a piece on this team to make sure that we could deliver that asset. Those crews were trained, and we're getting the job done, as you can see, with our return on investment of saving lives.
Kenneth, thanks so much, Karen. Kenneth, give us a moment during this program where you said, oh, this one's going to be hard to overcome, but you did.
Well, we had the development of the aircraft took about 10 years, a little over 10 years, and you're taking an aircraft that was built in the early 80s, delivered to the aircraft to air stations around the U.S. Then all the systems that were around that, from hangar space to just the facility in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, that rebuilds these aircraft. And then you have to take that design that's been worked on for 10 years and actually put it into an aircraft and then deliver it every 17 days. 98 aircraft, one every 17 days, turning that switch on and saying we're going forward and there's no turning back. That moment when we cut the first wire harness on that helicopter and says this is going to be an Echo really hit it home for all of us.
Well, it's pretty terrific. If I won't ask for a show of hands, obviously being in the Army and now being DHS Deputy Secretary, I get to go up in helicopters quite a bit. I will tell you, a rotary wing aircraft is a complex asset, right? It's and I won't have you spend up and do a science project here for us, but it's always going sort of right. It's always cantering, a particular direction. You have to have all these things. And the fact that you were able to produce this in every 70 days, putting it off the line, and knowing that the rest of the Coast Guard force, that the rescue swimmers and other were pulling full faith and confidence in you, goes right to the Coast Guard's motto, which is Semper Paratus, always ready. Well done. Next team award. In August 2021, the U.S. government began a humanitarian rescue operation of American citizens and Afghan nationals from Afghanistan about 2 years ago. They did so in a really difficult situation. If you guys remember the CNN images and everything else, you had hundreds of thousands of Afghans lining up trying to leave what would soon be Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. And without critical rapid information technology support, that Operation Allies Refuge, and eventually Operation Allies Welcome, would not have been successful. It was incredibly successful. We're going to actually talk about Operation Allies Refuge, which was the airborne airlift operation out of Afghanistan, out of Hamid Karzai International Airport, also known as HKIA, and then Operation Allies Welcome, OAW, which effectively resettled about 84,000 Afghan allies into the United States of America. So this is the first of the OAW awards. Please join me, hopefully you're here, in recognizing from Customs and Border Protection, Kendra Riley may not be here. Okay, Kendra's not here, so let's give her a round of applause. All right,
Thank you, sir.
over to you, Lord.
Thank you. Next, we have the Secretary's Champion of Equity Award. This award recognizes an employee who has excelled in efforts to promote diversity at DHS through outstanding leadership and innovation. It may acknowledge individual efforts exclusively within DHS or efforts with external partners who assist DHS in meeting our commitment to diversity.
Great, thank you, Lori. In its first year, the Office of Trade Task Force for Women set the standard for achieving gender equity and equality at CBP, Customs and Border Protection, laying the foundation for a long-term effort to positively impact Office of Trade culture and ensure greater inclusiveness and diversity. The task force raised awareness and educated both Office of Trade and the greater CBP workforce on important gender equity issues. These issues include women's health, gender bias, domestic violence, sexual assault, and unfortunately, so much more. Please join me in welcoming to the front from Customs and Border Protection, Kimberly Wiggins. All right. That applause was for online. Kimberly's not here. We'll make sure we save her award. So thanks very much, Kimberly. All right, I think we're on to leadership.
Yes, sir. Our Secretary's Award for Leadership Excellence. This award recognizes one employee who exemplifies the Department of Homeland Security's leadership philosophy, principles, and its core values of integrity, vigilance, and respect. A person who has led an effective team to achieve results, who has inspired and motivated others by example to work collaboratively and creatively, and who mentors personnel toward their highest potential.
Great, thank you, Lori. Many volunteers serve temporarily in support, and I just mentioned them too, of Operation Allies Refuge, which was the airlift out of Afghanistan in August 2021, and then the ensuing year-long plus Operation Allies Welcome, the resettlement, as I spoke about before, as well as in support of Customs Border Protection to help manage the increased flow of migrants crossing the southwest border. So we want to, for this award, this first award, to thank the exceptional leadership through the very good support of the Department of Homeland Security Volunteer Force. Please join me, hopefully, here in welcoming to the front from Transportation Security Administration, Derek Williams. So as you guys recall, Derek gets to be his own hype man because he was in the sizzle reel up there before, which I thought was so cool, Derek. So there's your award. I'll shake your hand real quick. And then ask you, Derek, obviously, you and I worked together on OAW. Any particular moments you want to share where you're like, I'm really proud of OAW for what reason?
The entire DHS volunteer force and in collaboration with CBP and all 22 federal agencies, in addition to all the other federal agencies, which we brought on about 30 others to stand up and support CBP in its effort at the southwest border. So my proud moment is actually being part of such a great team, being part of a group of individuals who work diligently daily to meet the Secretary's mandate, which was to get as many CBP personnel off the border and back into law enforcement by providing volunteers to support their efforts. So us being able to do that and then working cohesively with a whole lot of federal agencies, numerous team meetings. So that was the greatest part of the job, just being able to pull that together and having those countless meeting 12-hour days, 7 days a week. It was a wonderful time, and the team did a fantastic job. So kudos go out to Dr. Lee, Roland Edwards, and the rest of the leadership for the DHS Volunteer Force.
That was great for you to call out our Chief Human and Capital Officer, Roland Edwards, yes. His deputy, Dr. Kimya Lee. The department's volunteer force is one of those sort of gifts that keep on giving, and it's sort of a win-win. It's a force multiplier because ultimately what we're doing, and I mentioned two of the things, OAW, and then Derek, you spoke about relieving folks at the southwest border. It's Pekin Valley over on the southwest border. And we really need a lot of folks. And the reason it's a win is obviously we get the folks into the field. Got Paula back there from Office of Field Operations. POE, U.S. Border Patrol is, they're processing folks. We want to get them back into what we in the military would call their military occupational specialty type of thing, focusing on the effort. But the other reason to win is you put out the Larry, it's like a Batman call, a clarion call to the workforce that says, you know what, your fellow Department of Homeland Security colleagues, employees, teams, they need your help, right? And the folks who come forward, this is not a mandate. It literally just says, to the 260,000 of you out there, are you interested in helping out either on the border or for Operation Allies? Welcome. Come and do some, very different type of missions and processing Afghan refugees, because it was not a mission we were necessarily expecting. And come one, they did. Yes. And Derek, you were really instrumental in that. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We now come to the Secretary's Meritorious Service Silver Medal Award. This award is the second highest award presented by the Secretary and recognizes outstanding leadership, superior public service, or unusually significant contributions to strengthening Homeland Security. New to this category are General Schedule 11 and Wage Grade 8 employees serving in administrative, technical, clerical, and general support positions. This award may recognize a body of work regarding remarkable innovation or notable resourcefulness and diligence that improve the effectiveness of one or more DHS missions.
So unlike some of the awards, which are a lot of team awards to start out with, we're getting to the point where some of these are individual awards. So I won't get to have that sort of build of suspense. It's like, oh, who's he gonna call? Who's gonna come up? So I'm gonna just ask to see, so we can all stare at him. Is Mark Royer here? Where? Okay, Mark, you're over here. I'm sitting in Flexi land over there. Okay. So between August 1, 2021 and September 1st, 2022, Mark E. Royer, sitting right here in the center, supported Flexi's strategic goals through a series of initiatives that resulted in a savings of energy of the training center. And I'm really happy about this because I'm the Chief Operating Officer, of nearly $3 million, Mark. So thank you. These savings were vital to the organization's mission and allowed FLETC to address numerous critical infrastructure needs. We actually spoke about that earlier with another team. And so for that, Mark, please come on up to the front. And well done. There we go. Get a handshake. Here we go, Mark, right here. So a question to you, Mark. I mean, $3 million, big amount. I thank you as the Chief Operating Officer, and effectively the Chief Budget Officer. Director Walters, I'm sure, has thanked you before as well. We appreciate it. What are one or two highlights that came out of your initiatives that said these are the big drivers to the savings?
So I guess the first thing is our ability to enhance the capabilities of the training center themselves. I'm a plank holder. I was one of the first air marshals, and so I showed up in Atlantic City.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I'll do a round of applause for that.
I showed up in Atlantic City in September, and we helped train the first 5,000 air marshals through their phase 2. So when Brian was talking about what are we doing here and how we got it all together, and we're standing here looking at boxes, well, I kind of went to that. And I have to thank my assistant director, Mr. Lemons, who gave us the license to operate. So our first project was supposed to be a $1.5 million hazardous waste containment facility, and we ended up doing it for $285,000. And I had one employee who showed up to start. And the next day I had another employee who showed up to start, and they said, we're building a 12,000 square foot building with 2 of us. I'm like, yeah. And the next day, 2 more people showed up. So the word affection came into play, affection for the mission, affection for what we do at FLETC, and affection to be able to help the trainers get the ability to have the facilities they want. So it's kind of like the secret sauce is to build a team to make it go. They need to understand what it is that we're doing and how we defend our nation, and that those facilities are vital. Everything I watched up here, FLETC was involved in it in some way. Every training they went through, every picture that was there, somehow we're part of that. So we're getting to help put those people in those facilities.
Yeah, it's interesting, Mark. When I first read this award back when we were doing the review, so okay, this is terrific. This silver medal. This is really about cost savings and to some extent efficiency and effectiveness. But ultimately, I love the way you just described it. This is really about enhancing the mission for all of the people that we see on the screen, to the plank holders. Love that you're one of the 32,000 plank holders. So we appreciate that. And I know Brian in his CFO role really appreciates the cost savings as well. And we joke around a little bit about it's good to save money, but quite honestly, the American people expect us to be responsible stewards of the American taxpayer dollar. So you're like a triple win. So thanks for that. Appreciate it. All right, the next civil medal awarder, and I told you we were going to talk about OAW again, the Operation Allies Welcome Unified Coordination Group, so OAW Unified Coordination Group, is being recognized for its outstanding support to Operation Allies Welcome. OAW was an effort to safely and securely resettle nearly 90,000 evacuated Afghan allies in the United States. Spanning multiple governmental agencies and non-governmental organizations, OAW helped deliver vital services at multiple U.S. safe havens. We call them safe havens. There were about 10 roughly, went back and forth, about 10 U.S. military bases to assist in the resettlement of vulnerable Afghans to communities literally across the country. I won't name all the different states, but Wisconsin, Texas, Virginia. So please join me in welcoming to the front, and just come on up when I call a name. If you don't, then I'll know who didn't show up. Please join me in welcoming to the front from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Francisca Munoz. Okay, good. Francisca's here. I'm told that they're not here. I don't see any other uniforms. From the United States Coast Guard, Petty Officer First Class Melissa Mercado. Don't think so. Lieutenant Junior Grade Kelsey Wilson. Okay. They were unable to join us. So I think that's all from your team, from this particular OAW coordination group. Now, I tried to get Bob Fenton to come out, who's our regional administrator out west, Francisca, but he's pretty busy with atmospheric rivers in California, and I'm teasing a little bit about this. But I did tell him, I said, look, OAW continues to appropriately get recognized. So there's your awards, your silver medal. I'll shake your hand and ask you, for OAW, so interesting, really, probably on August 1st, you didn't expect to have this thing called OAW and resettling 90,000 Afghans, but you were called into service because, FEMA is great at both planning and executing. Any highlights from, the months of experience that you went through for OAW?
Yep. Probably the highlights were, although I was at the Unified Coordination Group up at DHS headquarters, I had a really great Commander Jesse Diaz from the Coast Guard and our Planning Section Chief Jeff Knudsen, and they organized for us to go out to some of the safe havens. So we were able to visit over a couple of months 4 or 5 of the various safe havens and actually get to see the Afghans that we were assisting and the various teams on the ground there and see how we could better assist them, although we were stationed up at headquarters.
That was terrific. Like Francesca, I got a chance to go out to many of the safe havens, and you would see the Afghans, especially the kids, who are effectively going to become, our neighbors in all of these communities. And I often said, for all of us as American citizens, largely most of us born in the United States of America, for them, they were clearly not. These are probably going to be some of our best community advocates because they're like, this is your new home and you welcomed us. So thanks for making that happen, Francisca.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm now pleased to introduce the Secretary's Exceptional Service Gold Medal Award. This is the highest award for service granted by the Secretary of Homeland Security. The award honors exceptional leadership or service that is distinguished by achievements of unique national or international significance, reflecting great credit on the Department of Homeland Security by markedly improving the security of our homeland. The Secretary may present the award to an individual or a group.
So this next one is for a group, and as I said, we were going to talk about Operation Allies Welcome a few times. You heard from a couple, you heard from Derek in terms of the volunteers getting out there, you heard from Francesca, she was up there at headquarters with me and Bob Fenton for the Unified Coordinating Group. But there's different phases. If you're thinking, there's the phase, the airlift out of Afghanistan, then what's happening forward in our lily pads, we call them that, Paula's shaking her head, in places like Ramstein, Germany. And then there were the points of entry, and then there were the safe havens. So this next award is actually, if you think about the life cycle here, as the Afghans are making it out of this Taliban-controlled country into the United States of America, obviously screening and vetting along the way. When they're here at the POE team, lots of different things have to go on there. So this is what this gold medal is for. The Operation Allies Welcome Safe Haven and Point of Entry leadership team worked on the ground efforts to welcome and resettle Afghan refugees following the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. The teams at the safe havens and points of entry helped to coordinate the department's approach to supporting OAW and worked outside their day-to-day responsibilities to integrate other key federal departments and agencies. In an operation that frequently went beyond the normal mission of the agency, they went above and beyond to serve those who stood alongside us, the United States of America, in the Afghan war. There's, I think, 4 names here, so hopefully they're here. Please join me in welcoming from TSA, Robert Schaefer. Okay. From the Immigration Customs Enforcement, Thomas Decker, Truman Bodie, and Jeff Darren. Were any of them able to make it? Okay. And we'll make sure that the rest of everybody else gets the award. So again, similar question on the OAW piece. There was so much going on. What was it all about? I mean, how did you make the magic happen for POE for the Afghans?
I think we were lucky enough to have a great team between DOD, the DHS, Surge Force, all the NGOs that showed up at Fort Pickett. We really had a really good team there that was able to do a lot. And for me, it was very rewarding being there amongst the Afghans again. I was part of the initial 6 HSI agents that went to Kabul in 2010.
Right.
So to be able to interact with the Afghans on this side of the world, it was special for me.
That's pretty cool. I mean, effectively, you went to go work with the Afghans, probably on the training and things of that nature, and they were helping us. It was our war too. And on the backside, you got a chance to thank them. So well done.
I'm now honored to introduce our final award category, the Secretary's Award for Valor. This award is the highest recognition for extraordinary acts of valor occurring either on or off duty. The employee will have demonstrated selfless response by performing courageously in a highly dangerous or life-threatening situation to protect another's life or to save significant assets or infrastructure from harm.
Very much. So we have 2 awards, and I'll read the first one up here, and then we'll go to the second one. Describe just a little bit of it, but and I'll give a heads up to the 2 awardees. You probably knew this. I'm just going to ask you to take us through those moments. Shortly after leaving the Homeland Security Investigation Jackson office, Special Agent John Rackley encountered a disabled vehicle and a driver covered in blood on the side of the road in Mississippi. Special Agent Rackley immediately noticed the victim had suffered several gunshot wounds. Special Agent Rackley heroically and swiftly jumped into action and literally saved the victim's life. So John Rackley, if you're here, can you please come up? John's not here? Nope, not here. So somewhere out there, live stream or eventually on tape, let's give a round of applause to John Rackley. Okay. Tim? Roger that. Okay, our next awardee is here. Got the thumbs up from my Navy veteran over here. On October 2nd, 2021, while traveling with his family on Interstate 10, think about that for a second, traveling with his family on Interstate 10, between Jacksonville and Tallahassee, Florida, Tim Knox witnessed a tractor trailer careen off the road, crash into a wooded area, and burst into flames. The fire prevented Mr. Knox from opening the doors, but he saw the driver stick her arm out the door. It was a broken windshield. Mr. Knox climbed onto the hood of the truck and pulled the driver out of the cab. He then moved the driver away from the wreckage as the cab became fully engulfed in flames. Without his heroic, quick response, the driver most certainly would have perished. Please join me in welcoming to the front from the Transportation Security Administration, Tim Knox. Take us through the moment. I know, it's all right. Please sit down. So, Tim, just take us through that moment. And I am going to ask you, you decide whenever you're going to do it, what was your family thinking as you put off your side? I'm running to the flames, not running away from it. Tim.
Well, I had just returned from, you're talking about Allied Welcome.
Yeah.
I had just came back September 30th from Indiana.
Wow.
So we were going to Tallahassee to pick my wife's grandmother up. We're traveling down 10 going west, and I always keep my eyes up as I'm driving, as you probably should. I told my wife, I said, that semi's getting ready to wreck. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, she just blew a tire out.
Ooh.
And the truck careened across the median. I don't know how it didn't get hit going by eastbound traffic, but she went down in a wooded area and the truck flipped kind of sideways. I don't know. I just did it. My 14-year-old daughter is in the back seat, and my wife's a prison warden, so she kind of knows this kind of stuff. So I just pulled in the median and I said, let's go. My daughter, I said, you stay in the car, Indy. My wife called 911, and I just hoofed it across the interstate. I got to the driver's side door, and it was engulfed, like you said. But I yelled, I said, can anybody hear me? Because this truck's on fire. You need to get out. No response. So I go around to the front of the cab, and it's leaning onto a tree. I'm yelling, and I still don't get a response. And then I'm yelling again, and I start climbing up. It's a semi with a hood on it. So I start climbing up on the fender, and I get up onto the hood. I yell again, and I said, can anybody hear me? I said, you need to get out. This truck's on fire. I hear her yelling, yes, I'm back here. I'm back here. I said, well, are you okay? Can you move? I think so. So she puts her arm up, and I grabbed her arm. And the windshield when she hit the tree, the windshield had flown out. So it was clear, I grabbed her arm, started pulling, just kept on pulling. And it was a cab that had the smaller windshields. So I got to a certain level, and the whole side of the truck is on fire. And I said, God, you got to help me. I grabbed, and I pulled real hard. We flew off. She flew through the windshield, and we both landed on the ground. Sat there for a few minutes, and I'm like, well, we really got to get going now because the whole cab,
Right.
the whole cab's on
Right.
fire now. So
Sure.
she's still, in a daze.
confused,
Yeah. So I grab her, and I start, and now we're out because it's a hill, so we got to walk up a hill, and I was lucky to get her up to some people that were medically certified, and they were able to take care of her from there. Then I get back to the car, and my wife says, this is hard. She said, you just saved someone's life.
Yeah.
I said, I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I just did it. And my kid said, don't you ever do that again. Because she could see me go down the hill.
Yeah, Roger.
She didn't see me anymore.
Right.
So she doesn't know where I'm at.
Right.
And then when I come across the interstate, she's yelling and screaming for me. So that's my story. That's it.
Wow. Wow. Tim, I mean, really, this is the last award. This wraps up so much of what we already talked about. It encapsulates it. I think in many ways, your last comment there, I think truly reflects what I said at the very beginning during the speech, which is it's Indy. Indy's the daughter, is that when we serve, we all serve. So thank God that Tim Knox ran to the flames. That person thanks you, and that we as fellow American citizens, we're glad that there's Tim Knoxes in the room. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our plank holders and awardees for sharing your talents, making a commitment to public service, and representing the department in the highest manner. Let's have another round of applause for everyone we congratulated today. Now it's my honor to turn the ceremony over to the Deputy Secretary for some closing remarks.
Great. I'll be brief. Great. Where are we doing the photos? Over by the step and repeat, as I said. Okay. Good. Very, very short here. Look, it's as I started off at the very beginning, wanted to say thank you to the management team, to my great partner over here, and Lori Boulding, our Chief Learning Officer, for everybody else who was in the support. You break out a few times. In particular to the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport authorities who hosted us in this great room in this setting, and of course to the ATL, TSA team. Robert, we really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Stacy, for being our co-master of ceremonies today. I think what you saw today represents not only the best of the Department of Homeland Security, but the best of America. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. This concludes our ceremony. Plank holders and awardees, we welcome you and your guests to join us for photographs with the Deputy Secretary to the side. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.